Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts, sports journalist David Todd, and from SteelersDepot.com, Dave Bryan. Just a couple of Daves, chillin', talking Steelers. Now, here's Dave and Dave.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Dave. He's Dave Bryan of SteelersDepot.com, the place to get your latest and greatest Steelers information. And I'm David Todd. It's Season 9, Episode 32. And Dave, for the first time in a long time, and certainly the first time in 2018, we saw a pretty complete performance and a dominating win from the Steelers yesterday.
Yes, that was definitely nice to see, especially the start, that they got off to in that game, and really kept the throttle down, for most of it. And we'll get into dissecting the game here, but here we are, Week 6, and they are 2-2-1.
Yeah, 2-2-1.
And a missed field goal kick by Chris Boswell away from being 3-1. What would it be? 3-2. Yeah, 3-2.
Well, it sets it. Look, they've got a game coming up now. Sunday is a really big game. I mean, the Bengals, down what, 17-3?
17-0, weren't they?
Yeah, well, yeah, and with 17-3 going into the fourth quarter, turn around and win 27-20. I had a chance to watch the Ravens and the Browns game yesterday as well. That goes into OT, and the Browns might actually cut their kicker after his game-winning field. He might be the first guy ever to be cut after making a game-winning field goal. One of the ugliest kicks you'll ever see. But the Browns coming, that helps the Steelers. But a big matchup coming up, and a very nice win, and really. We've been very critical of this team starting out 1-2-1, and deservedly so, just trying to be honest about what they've done, but almost across the board, and we'll get into the few negatives, but almost across the board, a really good showing, and really kudos to the defense for slowing down an offense that had just been racking it up against everybody so far this year.
Yeah, and we talked about what's going to be the what would the narrative be? If it's a close kind of shootout, then it'd be okay. Well, they just eked one out there, But what would be the narrative if they, I mean, I don't think either of us expected a 24 point win. I mean, what's the narrative right now?
The narrative is a big question mark. The certainly for me coming out of that game, it's great to see the defense step up and play better, get pressure on the quarterback, get turnovers, do all the things they did. Seriously, look, I mean, we know what the most important thing is for any team in the league, and it's the play of their quarterback. And I still have no idea what's going on with Ben there in that first half and early in the second half, maybe missing throws to Antonio Brown that just so far off the mark that it raises some question marks. But he overall his line looks very good. It's great to see him connect with AB, certainly on that second touchdown pass down the left side. That's the first deep ball we've really seen Ben hit on for a touchdown to one of the Steelers wideouts. So that's the undercurrent behind a very good performance, a sensational game from James Conner, Joe Hayden, an outstanding effort. T.J. Watt, I mean, go down the list. A lot of guys had big days, but there's still a little bit of a question about Ben's play.
Well, what a lot of people will do, we went into this game or ahead of coming out of the game against the Ravens talking about, man, you look at what those three wide receivers that Baltimore have did or were able to do against the Steelers. What the heck is the combination of Julio Jones, Sanu, and Calvin Ridley going to do? I mean, how do you feel, looking ahead, going back, if you were to be able to put yourself back coming out of the preseason and looking ahead to the Steelers' first 5 games of the regular season, you surely wouldn't have identified Tyrod Taylor and his receiving core as being a tough one that the Steelers would face. In week 2, that was
you had the Josh Gordon question mark. So you had Jarvis Landry and a question mark of Josh Gordon.
Sure, but I mean those guys haven't done it together on the same team for a period of time.
Right.
And then you look at Tyrod Taylor and you kind of shrug your shoulders. Even if you were to give their wide receiver group some credit, you get to Tyrod Taylor and just kind of shrug your shoulders there. Moving on into week 2 against who? The Chiefs there, right? You're thinking, okay, some decent, Tyreek Hill, obviously a guy that you have to concentrate on slowing down. Sammy Watkins is a guy that's got some pedigree to him, and all. But boy, they get Kelsey. But they had done good in the past against Kelsey. And really, for that matter, Hill as well in the previous couple of games. And then you get to the quarterback and you think, well, this is just a second year quarterback. So ahead of that game, you were probably obviously a little bit more nervous than you were against, ahead of the game against the Browns. You get to the week 3 game, and at that point you're thinking, I don't know about this defense. And here comes Fitz Magic and Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson and Chris Godwin, and you're thinking, is it because the way the defense had played up until that point that kind of made you
Well, it's because the Bucs had really put it up. They'd put it up for a couple games, so both were true in that game.
Right, so you had a little bit of reason to sleep uneasy going into that game. I would imagine, and then you get into the game against the Ravens. I got to be honest with you, I wasn't that fearful of the Ravens receiving core going into the game. And I obviously respect them a little bit more coming out of that game and all. But I guess what I'm getting at is you see Calvin Ridley and Sanu and Julio Jones ahead of the season, and then you combine Matt Ryan with it. You would have probably circled this game against the Falcons as being the one that you were most curious about how the Steelers defense would fare against the offense, right?
No doubt. This is what I thought the Steelers would do last week to the Ravens. I thought, didn't matter, but I think I predicted something like 31-17 or 34-17. The Steelers would win comfortably. And I certainly, obviously, neither of us saw this performance from the defense happening the way it did. And, just really, really solid work. And look, I'll say Matt Ryan didn't play well. And I don't know if that's courtesy of the defense or what, but he also just, missed receivers. He's trying his touch passes to Hooper, where he was trying to throw, over guys, and he missed badly on a couple throws. It was just not a great performance. And, I say we'll see how the all-22 looks, but the Steelers did something slightly out of character, and having Joe Hayden follow Julio Jones around, and Julio Jones was a non-factor. I mean, he finishes with 5 for 62, so it looks like that was, he contributed at some degree. That was all garbage timed catches. He was a non-factor in the game, and Ridley wasn't really a factor either. So, yes, no doubt, unexpected that the Steelers were able to do that. I mean, you get beat by Sanu on a really nice play design and a perfect throw, catch and run. But overall, A+.
Yeah, that by the way, that Sanu, you go back and look at it looks like an RPO.
Steelers run that same play, and they've hit on that play. You get the linebackers. You could run the play action. You get the linebackers to hold, and if you hit that guy on the slant at just the level where he's even with the DB or the linebacker, who's ever looking at him. Well, then he's done. You're done because the safeties are split wide, and you're not going to win that race. So it's over. If you catch that ball and you're able to hold those linebackers, that's a great play design.
I think the most discouraging part about that entire play was not that him being kind of uncovered, because that's going to, like you said, we've seen over the years the Steelers run that same RPO with a quick pop to whoever's in the slot. Normally, generally, it's been a tight end. When you see the Steelers kind of hit that down the middle on a quick RPO, and generally it's to the right side instead of the left side, like that one was with the Falcons there. But outside of just it being a wide open quick throw, the most embarrassing thing I think was the angle that Sean Davis took. Look, okay, they get it. Give them 15 yards on it, but get the guy down to the ground. Don't let him stand in the end zone with it. I think that was the most discouraging, probably the single most discouraging play maybe in that game for the defense there. And yeah, you're right about Matt Ryan. And it's going to be some. I've got like 42 plays I want to study on after going through my notes on the all 22 here, because you just the TV angle just doesn't give you a good look at it and all. But it looked like he was confused quite a bit about what was coming, and then when it did come, you talk about Mike Hilton, him being back on the field, not so much in the secondary, but him coming off the edge, especially it looked like we'll see what our charting says on this, but him coming off the edge, especially in the second quarter, really seemed to, multiple.
He's dynamite, man. He is dynamite. He is a great blitzer. I tweeted that during the game. Listen, Mike Hilton is a significant member of this defense, no doubt.
Multiple times, even back-to-back plays coming off the edge, kind of forcing forcing Matt Ryan off the spot or forcing the football to come out early. I think that was one thing that stuck out to me in the TV tape. The other thing that stuck out to me is when guys like Hilton didn't come. It seemed like, and once again, the charting, and Alex, I think, has already started on the defensive charting here. It seemed like they were able to get good pressure with 4-man rushes quite a bit, especially in the first half of this game. They blitzed a fair amount, and when they did go, it seemed like they were getting pressure in that area. But in times when they were only sending 4, it also seemed to be effective in that area. And Matt Ryan just really seemed unsettled. Now, when you go and you look at you watch the game and you go back and you look at his stats, he completed 26 of 38 passes in the game there, but a lot of the misses really seem to be key misses at key times, and potentially a lot of those on third down, where the Falcons were just 6 of 14 in the game on third downs.
Yeah, and obviously for the Steelers, just the opposite. Just really. Mike talked about it last week after the Ravens game. I think it was in his presser. He, pointed right to the third down stat, and it was, dramatic improvement for the Steelers in this one on third down. And
you look at Matt Schaub, all that's garbage numbers, 5 of 7 for him for 20 yards, a lot of dump offs in there. But, you mentioned the 5 of 62 for Julio Jones. You asked me ahead of this game, how would I go about maybe doing this? And I'd said, I'd probably play as much, man coverage as possible in this game. Now, I didn't, obviously didn't know that they were going to decide to let Joe Hayden follow Julio around in this game, but I'm glad they did, and it makes you kind of wonder why maybe we don't see more of that. And Julio even said after the game, I think, something to the line, said when he wasn't seeing single coverage, he was seeing 2 men on him. Why not? And I wrote this in my 5 keys right ahead of the game on Sunday morning, was the fact that you can't let Julio have one of those schoolyard days against you where he goes for 150 plus, and we certainly have seen games from Julio Jones, not necessarily against the Steelers, but league wide, where he'll get on top of you with 10 catches and you turn around 200 and whatever yards and a couple of touchdowns. You just could not let him beat you. You had to make Matt Ryan go to guys like Hooper, like to Sanu, like to Ridley. And even, Ridley came into this game with a team high 6 touchdown catches for them. He only had 15 catches. Okay, so there's still that level of trying to build some sort of rapport with his quarterback. So, kudos to the Steelers for just letting Joe Hayden and follow Julio Jones around in that game. And as you mentioned, 5 catches for 62 yards, but all that came in the fourth quarter when the game was essentially even over at that point. So now it makes you wonder, you coming up against guys like A.J. Green. You just can't let guys like that number ones run all over you. So, will we see Hayden follow a guy like A.J. Green around this next week?
That's a really good question, and I would think you're probably leaning yes after seeing what happened in that performance. And the Steelers have done that with Ike, with A.J. Green in the past. So I would think that is definitely on the table. Yes, you look at the Bengals receiving corps, and we'll obviously get into this on Wednesday and Friday in greater detail. But with Eifert out, Tyler Boyd has stepped up and is having the best season of his career to this point. But yeah, I would think they would do that. And look, this was this was good from the get-go. And the interesting thing is the Steelers. It was the exact reverse of everything they've done to this point in the season, in the sense that they got off to a good start. They were good in the second half. They had one bad quarter, and it was the second quarter where they got outscored 10-0. The second quarter is where the only thing that they've kind of had going for them to this point in the season. And, we're going to have this debate forever. And, I've made my view on this very clear. The reason you don't pay somebody at running back $14.5 million is because you can find guys for $500,000 that are, James Conner type guys. And Conner was fantastic yesterday. I mean, he was elusive. He was good catching the ball. He hit the holes hard. He got the short yards when he needed short yardage. I mean, it was a great performance, and it started on the opening drive when I think he had 72 of the 78 yards on the opening drive, and certainly that set the tone for the day.
One other thing while we wrap up talking about the Steelers defense versus that Falcons offense, it was still a bit concerning, though, that the Falcons go 9 plays, 8 plays, 13 plays to open things up. They got
no doubt
10 of their 17 points came on their first 3 possessions. And seriously, what was going through your head at what was it, 13
to 10,
13 to 10? What was going through your head at that point?
37-36. Whoever has the ball last wins.
Right.
Yeah. Again, I tweeted that too. It's just that's what it felt like, because it wasn't a great start for the defense. And you're right. They and then obviously then the Steelers, they go 3 and out, they go 4 and out, or no, they go 3 and out, 3 and out,
6
and
and
then Ben makes the worst decision you'll ever see, to throw a jump ball, and that it was not. So at halftime, okay, let's put it this way. I mean, we've talked about we've been very positive, but I wasn't feeling great at halftime. Put it that way.
Right, and especially because the positives to come out of the first half, I think, were this. They moved the football and scored and overcame Ben. And people get on us. We get. Do people realize how many nasty emails we get for banging on Ben? I mean, we still praise him, and look, we try to point out, like the drive against Tampa Bay, to close out, that 2-minute drive. It's not that we're all bad, but look, we're not going to sugarcoat it when it comes to the team's quarterback either, and he hasn't been great. People say, well, Ben put together a full game against Tampa Bay. No, he didn't. I mean, look, a full game is not getting shut out in the second half, right?
Yeah, well, for sure. He was bad in the last 2 second halves. There's just no doubt about it. And it's still, I really don't get it. I mean, you saw kind of the love fest at the end of after this 47-yard touchdown between Ben and AB, but I'd really still, I'd go back and look at those throws. Just some of them are just crazy how much he missed them by. And I don't know. It's cause for it. If you're thinking about things to be concerned about, that's still concerning.
Like I said, I think the positives come out, especially in the first half. Offensively, they scored and basically overcame their quarterback. and it really should have been more. I mean, it was really back-to-back throws down there to close out that first half, right? Thank God. David, can they move Antonio Brown to cornerback? I mean, that was a nice play by him to break up that
in the end zone, the one in the end zone,
right? In the end zone to break up that first ill-advised throw by Ben, and then that's not enough for Ben. He has to come back and throw a jump ball up to AB that the Falcons came down with. You hate to see that, and yeah, he was not great in what was his numbers in the first half? I mean, it was hold on here. Ben, it was, I can envision people open up their emails now, pinning letters to us about get off Ben Roethlisberger. I just see it. I feel it right now. 9 of 17 for 95 yards with a touchdown and an interception. A quarterback, old-time quarterback rating of 64.6. Not great. Now,
I have to say, I was in a public establishment watching the game yesterday because I was out of town, and he threw that ball, and I had to audibly let it be known that I didn't think that was a great decision as the ball was in the air. I mean, it was just like, what is he doing? Jump ball to AB in the end zone. I mean, come on.
What if we ever did a remote from a Steelers bar or whatnot like that? We would get crushed, wouldn't we? People would toss us out, or me at least, probably. They'd sacrifice me, but I mean, look, it wasn't great. Let's not sugarcoat it. It was not a great first half, and thank goodness. Here's one thing, and this is why I said the other day when we were previewing the game, it was obvious due to injury that the Falcons' defense, is a mess. And has been now, and they were without their defensive tackle, Grady Jarrett in this one. That's why I said, and even right before the game, I said there's no reason whatsoever why the Steelers should not be able to run up the gut against the Falcons. If they could not run up the gut against that defense, then they're not going to be able to run up the gut against any defense all season long. And to their credit, they did that in the offensive line. Boy, we saw a lot of interior linemen on the move, Pouncey and DeCastro. So some good kind of pin and pull type plays there that got good yards. And Connor just ran. I mean, very, very hard. Broke quite a few tackles in this game. The couple of passes that he caught in the first half, 37 yards with a long of 29. Just all around great from a running game aspect, and that really was in my opinion, that was the difference in the first half when it came to the offense there, because he targeted, I think, Antonio Brown 8 times in that first half, and he only connected with him twice on some shorter throws, and you're thinking to yourself, man, I'm sure hope this running game keeps up. Because, the passing game, how's Ben going to do when we get into the second half here? Now, let's make sure we point out, though, the throw to Juju Smith-Schuster was money. That was probably his single best throw of the first half, right, Ben's?
Yep. And
that's up where only his guy can get it. And credit, look, I was on Juju in that last game because I really thought, even though it was a great play by who was it, Carr, that broke that one up in the end zone against the Ravens. I
don't remember, but yes,
that's still, to my, if a wide receiver is able to elevate and get both hands cleanly on the ball, I don't care what the defensive back is at that point.
Yeah, right. This is the one we talked about. He didn't catch it, hit his helmet. He didn't really catch it clean.
Right. In my opinion, the wide receiver should always come down with that. How do you feel about it?
If the guy if the defensive back has his arm between the receiver's arms and the ball, and he can just pull his arm up and knock the ball loose, that's an almost impossible ball to hold on to. But, if you get him on and you're pulling it in, yeah, you should make that, ideally you make that catch. And look, the throw Ben made for the touchdown to Antonio Brown, where, again, he was kind of on the run. He kept the play alive, and AB made the great catch. He threw him open. That was a great throw. And in this game, look, the throw to Juju was good. The throw to AB down the sideline is what we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing that throw be made. And, on the offensive pass interference to James Washington, Ben threw it out of bounds again on that one. So this one down the sideline, I think it's the first one we've seen this year, right?
Yeah, in stride like that, and he dropped out. I mean, that's the old bucket throw right there. It's going to be interesting to see you can't tell on the television view to where the safety is on that, but you get AB out there one-on-one out there with just one safety on his side. I'm most interested to see if Ben was able to, if there was any looking off or anything. Here's the other thing too, and this gets me, and we don't see enough, but I mean, maybe it's because of the games getting out of hand early in the past this year, but overall, really, I don't think we've seen the level of the play action in general that we should see. But because they ran so good in that game, it sets up the instance, and that was correct me if I'm wrong, the deep touchdown to Antonio was a 1st and 10 play, right?
I don't know off the top of my head, but
okay. Well,
yeah,
I mean,
look, you're right, and I kind of downplayed the running game a little bit. Because it's a passing league and you got to throw the ball to win. But certainly, we've talked about how the Steelers aren't really a play action team. And, you do, when you run the ball as effectively as they did, you obviously cause the defense to play slightly differently. And they were able to do some things. Ben made he made some good throws in the second half. I mean, the slant on their first possession in the second half, he throws a second down slant to Antonio Brown that, I'm not going to say it's ill-advised because he made a perfect throw, but you saw the Falcons playing like 5 across at the middle level, and AB just ran off the outside and ran a simple slant. And he threw it right on the money. And it's a good thing he did because the underneath linebacker was coming across. And those are the Steelers' offense it's not the most sophisticated offense, but if Ben is putting the ball on the money, it's damn hard to stop.
And when you are less. When you're less dedicated to down distance in the scoreboard, as was the case with that deep touchdown to Antonio Brown, it really it goes without saying, it's a Captain Obvious statement that your quarterback becomes better, and especially a quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger when he's under center and everybody in the whole entire stadium, because of the formation that you have, is thinking run. And you have your quarterback under center, and then you can play action and then make that bucket throw to AB down the sideline. It just makes everything look and smell and feel better at that point. So, yeah, I mean, do you have to run the ball, as effectively as they did in the first half in order to win? No. But you have to run successfully enough. And I guess that goes back to maybe one thing. I know it really aggravated you probably a little bit more than me in that game against the Ravens. And really, we've seen them do this a few times now, is they scratch and claw back from being in a huge early hole. I mean, like we were talking about in the game against the Ravens, what were you thinking about when the team ran off to the locker room to get their orange slices and Capri Suns? Choke you up there?
Yeah. So, I mean, look,
what do you remember what you were thinking? You're thinking, hell yeah, they got this now because they're going to come out and they're going to be able to run the ball.
No, I mean, against the Ravens, I thought they would win. Yesterday, I had no idea. I mean, they came out. The Tampa game, you kind of felt like it was over at halftime. They came out and played poorly in the second half. The Ravens game, they did the job coming back. And I just said if Randy Fiedler comes out and runs the ball, to open this half, I'm going to lose my mind. And they did, and they couldn't move the ball, and they played terribly in the second half again. And in this game, they came out and did everything right. First, they got to stop because the Falcons got the ball. They got to stop. And, from there, it was, the rest of that. I mean, it was pretty close to a perfect second half.
And Ryan Switzer does not count running the football, okay? So, look, I love the kid. I'm glad the Steelers got him because I think he's a great situational player. But what we saw for and we talked about this after the game, no way should a guy like Ryan Switzer lead you in, like, targets or receptions in a game. And, I understand putting him in the backfield every once in a while and working, trying to keep defenses on their toes that way, but it's just not. I don't consider that. I mean, that's not part of the running game, in my opinion. What they did, to come out in the second half of this game is kind of what we thought and hoped they would do. Now to their credit, Ravens got a good defense. That defense, as we said, already at least one time during this show and heading into the game against the Falcons. They should have been able to run against the Falcons defense, and now it'll be interesting to see how they're able to run moving forward against teams with tougher, with better fronts and healthier fronts, against them and all. So, I mean, there was a lot of good, especially in the second half, to take away from the Steelers offense. And just imagine imagine coming out and getting that same kind of performance in the first half with Ben being on the money.
I mean, he had 8 incompletions. There weren't any drops. They were not catchable balls. He did not. I don't get it because you tell me Josh Allen does that playing for the Bills in his 4th career start, and we don't know what Josh Allen is. But one of the things about Ben is, he's an accurate quarterback, and so it's just odd. It's just odd, and that's why you come out of this game with a great feeling, but that's still a little bit disconcerting. Is that level of inaccuracy on relatively easy, on occasion he was under pressure. But if you go back and look at these, and having watched some of the replays, I mean, a lot of the times he's there and he has time in the pocket and he gets to step into the throw, and it's off the mark.
Yeah, look, we know he still has it. 10 of 12 in the second half. I think the most aggravating, even after all that in the first half, I think the most aggravating thing was late in the first half. Those 2 back-to-back kind of forced throws to Antonio. One obviously not intercepted, and the second one was. Just throw that thing out of the back of the end zone and be done with it, and see what you can do on the next down there. But I mean, like we said, he had a great throw to Juju Smith-Schuster for a touchdown in the first half there, and then. Definitely settled down in right away in the second half there. But all right, now the question becomes: we've seen enough of James Conner now, I think, to know what he is and what he isn't now. So I was asked this on Twitter: what happens when Le'Veon Bell comes back and assuming that he's kept and allowed to play?
That's very funny because that's exactly what I was going to ask you right at this point. I was going to just ask you that question. And the answer is, I'm not sure. For me, I imagine that it'll start as a shared work job for the two of them. But here's what just happened to Le'Veon Bell. He may be, and I think at the end of the day, Le'Veon Bell's decisions will end up costing him money. And the reason is he's forfeited the opportunity to earn, whatever number we're on now, about $4 million. So he's forfeited that money. So, and the point is, there is, how he's actually going to perform is a bit of an open question because, we're not sure how good the Steelers are. So that's an open question. And now there's an argument to be made that you don't just give Le'Veon Bell the job when he comes back. Now, I understand the argument. The other side of that argument is that Le'Veon Bell's arguably, the best or one of the 3 or 4 best running backs in the game. Of course he gets his job back. But, Le'Veon Bell wouldn't have, he wouldn't have played better than James Conner yesterday. And, we haven't seen that level of consistency from James Conner, and you have to be concerned. James Conner fumbled against the Browns. That was a huge turning point in that game. and he fumbled one going into the end zone in this one. So you're a little bit worried. Not that Le'Veon Bell hasn't fumbled; he's fumbled as well. A little bit worried about ball security with James Conner, but the way he ran with the football, and certainly the way he caught the football and ran, was incredibly impressive. The 30-yard run he had in the game yesterday was longer than any run Le'Veon Bell had all of last season.
He has 6 explosive plays in total, James Conner does, on the season of 20 yards or more. And last year, Le'Veon had 11 in total, and I think only 3 of those were on the ground. That's
a good stat. And, and we've talked about James Conner. He's perfectly fine in pass protection now. And, that's not your primary function as a feature back, but it is a function. But the whole idea, I joked that the Steelers should pay James Conner like a receiver. The whole idea that, no other running back can go out and catch a ball, the way Le'Veon Bell can, I think is a little bit overplayed. Le'Veon Bell is very good at it, and he's a great route runner, no doubt. But you saw yesterday, James Conner, his elusiveness, his ability to kind of break tackles and run by people, that was showcased yesterday in a very good way. And I think it's, it'll be interesting. I would think the day Le'Veon Bell dresses for the Steelers again, if that happens, James Conner will be the starting running back. I don't think that will be the case forever if Le'Veon Bell comes back, but James Conner is going to play.
Especially the first couple of games back, you would think. And it does, look, here's the thing about Le'Veon Bell. You still go back and watch some of the things he's done with that cut of his, and especially second level type stuff, right? Or in the hole type stuff outside of the tackles or second level with Le'Veon Bell. He's got that nasty. He's still got a nasty cut to him that you just don't see. James Conner does have a nice little shiftiness to him at times, but it's just not on the level of Le'Veon Bell. Agree?
Yeah, I think that's right. Le'Veon Bell is probably a little bit more of a physical runner than James Conner, but we've talked about James Conner hits the hole more aggressively because it's a slightly different running style. A lot's been made about how Le'Veon Bell's patience in the hole is unique, and it is. But, when a guy goes out and puts up 185 total yards or whatever, James Conner finished the day with yesterday and does it the way he did it, he averaged 5 yards a carry and he averaged 18 yards a reception. And one of the things about, people talk about the 85 catches I think Le'Veon had last year. Remember, he averaged, 7 yards a catch. It was a lot of checkdowns and stuff. James Conner just, we saw yesterday, and this was what we talked about Todd Gurley last year, his ability to take the ball to the house as a receiver. And Conner was dangerous yesterday receiving. 4 catches for 75 yards. He was second on the team in yards. I mean, that's a big day.
Yeah, I don't want to take any away. People will look at the number of receptions that Bell has and then try to kind of equate, or try to here, I guess what I'm trying to say here is Conner has 22 receptions. If I would have told you after 5 games, James Conner has 22 receptions for 239 yards, you told me I'm probably crazy, right?
The receptions doesn't shock me. The yards is certainly higher than I would have guessed. He's averaging 11 yards a catch.
And that's where I'm going next year. Is it's 10.9 yards per reception average. Do you remember exactly what Le'Veon Bell's number was last year? Now, obviously, you have.
I think it was 7.8, right?
7.7. That's good.
7.7.
I'm proud of you. You have some level of you have a little
cognitive ability.
I like to call it a little touch of madness, David. I appreciate that. Do you remember what he had the year before, 2016? What Bell's average was?
I guess it was like 8.3.
Very good, 8.2. 8.2. Do you remember? Let's go back 2015.
Maybe a little higher than 9, 8.
Well, remember that was the season he got hurt, right? 5.7 in 2015. So James Conner is not just. I mean, he's crushing. That's put it to you this way, put it into comparison, and it's still early, and this is obviously going to change a little bit here. Antonio Brown is averaging 10.7 yards per reception. James Conner has 10.9 yards per reception.
Yeah, that puts it in perspective. I would imagine it. We'll see if he's leading the running backs in average. And again, this is the point. Like, don't just tell me what a great route runner Le'Veon Bell is. If the numbers are 7.8 yards a catch, okay, how dangerous is it? It's he is dangerous, but it's again, I'm not knocking Le'Veon Bell as a player. It's just I'm impressed with James Conner for $600,000 versus $14.5 million. Give me James Conner 10 times over.
Right, and look, it's a long season, okay, but I mean it is an impressive. And look, I mean, he's had a couple games where he really hasn't done anything, but in the games where he's been the most effective, he's put up some nice numbers, and especially.
Yeah, and the point is, in both those games, the Chiefs game, they were down 21-0 out of the chute, and the Ravens game, they were down 14-0 out of the chute. It makes, obviously, you get a little bit dictated by the game situation.
All right, we ran down the stats rabbit hole there. Now let's go back to the main topic here. What did he do when Le'Veon Bell comes back? Here was my response on Twitter. You can never have too many good players. And I think somebody shot back, well, could you do something with both of them in the backfield? Hell yeah, you can. Now, is it something that you're going to see? Obviously you're not going to do that a lot, but I mean, it sure sets up it sure would put defenses in a heck of a bind if you trot both those guys out onto the field. And depending on the personnel that you're going up against defensively, technically you could take either one of those guys, talking about Conner or Bell, and line them up, in the slot, out wide, and get a good matchup there, especially with a guy like Le'Veon Bell. Or you could collapse the two down, and then you don't know which running back's going to get the ball out of the backfield at that point. So it does. You can get, if you're Randy Fichtner, I think that's a great problem to have, to try to get, when Bell comes back, to try to figure out a way maybe that you could get both Bell and Conner on the field for, let's say, 6 snaps, 5, 6, 7 snaps a game, something like that, because I think the advantages that you could get personnel-wise in certain down and distances and all would be something that I think you'd be foolish not to try to go after there. Now here's the thing. I mean, look, I still don't think it's going to happen, and I've said this right from the get-go. But if you could gladly get paid for the hamburger today,
yep.
Get the third round pick for Le'Veon Bell, right? I mean,
yeah, for sure. I mean, you don't know how the season's going, and if you can get it a year early rather than waiting a year to get the supplemental pick, because look, it's very clear. I mean, it's very clear. I mean, we've said this all along. It's very clear Le'Veon's not going to be a Steeler in 2019. So that is what it is. So let's take a guess at this. So Le'Veon Bell comes back. The Steelers will have played 6 games. So let's just say hypothetically he's eligible for 10 games. Will Le'Veon Bell carry the ball 150 times for the Steelers this season?
Carry or touch? Carry?
Carry.
Wow. That's a tough one. Probably not. Probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, so he's not going to touch it 200 times then, right? I mean, because he's going to lose touches to James Conner. So, he's going to get his wish. They're not going to run the wheels off him because James Conner's shown that, he can be a productive back. So you're going to have 2 guys to split the load, and again, I just feel like that is going to cost Le'Veon Bell money. Dave, speaking of money, how'd you do against the man this week?
I did okay. I think we're going to be able to eat some turkey sandwiches this week.
Well, that's good to hear because as everybody knows, we've been partnering up with mybookie.ag and fun weekend. Did you watch the fight?
You know I did. Yeah, I did. I enjoyed myself. Look, they had me. I was happy. I was trying to give them more money even before the McGregor fight started because I was so happy with the way that went. Then the McGregor fight happened, and then of course the stuff that happened after. They always get me, David. I told you that the other day. They always get me.
Well, whether you're an expert or a rookie, you should be betting at mybookie.ag. If you like to, look, if you just want to put a little bit of money in action, you like at the roulette wheel at the casino, you go in, you get a 3-team parlay, you can turn $100 into $600. You play these. You probably when I was growing up, Dave, somebody in the neighborhood would be passing out those little stubs where you had every game on it. You could have a 10-team parlay, and you turn $2 into you'd be a millionaire if you hit all the games that you were trying to hit. But you can go to my bookie and you can set those things up, those parlays. We've got playoff baseball going on now. Hockey's up and going. We had the fight Saturday night. Obviously, college and pro football always, and basketball around the corner. But my bookie's one place you'll be happy with all year. You can trust them. These guys have been in business forever. Online reviews, mobile site's easy to use. So get in there and use our promo code because they're still going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $1,000. Check it out. Use our promo code TERRIBLE, as in Terrible Podcast. You get a 100% match up to $1,000. You play, you win, you get paid. If you took the Steelers yesterday, you got paid.
All right, where were we? We were talking about. Look, it's going to be an interesting. Will a team be willing? That gets back into the whole thing. We'll see. I mean, we've already beat that horse pretty good. And look, he's not even back yet, right? I mean, let me ask you this: does it behoove maybe Le'Veon Bell just to stay?
Show up today.
No, just to stay, to keep himself sidelined.
I don't know if I'm let's just make a team up. If I'm the New York Jets or the Oakland Raiders or whomever, and I got a ton of cap space, and I'm going to have a high draft pick, do I want to go pay Le'Veon Bell $35-40 million guaranteed? You have $15 million a season when he hasn't played in 18 months. I don't know. That doesn't make me feel great. I'd like to see him in action.
All right, let's get over to some other interesting aspects of the game.
What about James Washington? Tell me what you think about James Washington. Is it disappointing or as expected?
I think it's disappointing that we haven't seen Ben been able to connect with him down the field. I think that's the most concerning thing with James Washington right now. 5 catches, 49 yards. Most of his grabs are over the middle, right? Kind of stuff there. It's forgivable right now, but he's not set. I kind of envision him having, 10, 12 catches maybe by now. So
yeah, we've expected a four catch, 75-yard gain from him at this point in the season, and it just goes to highlight that the Steelers don't. I've been harping on this since July. The two spots where I don't think they have depth have been linebacker and wide receiver, and expecting the next guy to be Juju Smith-Schuster again, and basically recreate his, just match his rookie season performance that's just too much to ask. You even look at Ridley. Ridley came into that game yesterday with 6 touchdowns, and everybody knows that. He only had 16 catches. Juju put up crazy good numbers for a rookie receiver. So I wasn't expecting anything close to that from James Washington, but I think we did talk about kind of 50 catches on the season, and we're about a third of the way through the season, and we're not on pace for 50 catches.
Now remember that they do have a lot of weapons here now. And they have played from behind.
Do they have a lot of weapons? You look around, and anybody, Vance McDonald's a nice player, but I don't think people around the league look at him as a weapon. The people don't, weren't looking at James Conner as a weapon. You match up other teams' weapons against the Steelers, and right now you're taking most of the other teams' weapons.
Well, I'm saying you have maybe weapons isn't the right. They have competent receiving options. How's that?
2, 3.
No, McDonald's competent. Down the field.
I put McDonald in there as third. Juju, AB, and McDonald.
Well, we just spent 10 minutes talking about Connor and a 10.9 receiving average.
Yeah, I will say before yesterday, we wouldn't have had that conversation, but we are now. Yes.
All right. So, now, Washington has become a kind of a luxury. And is there a level of Ben probably not fully trusting him yet? Possibly. But yeah, I think the overall thing is, I'm not concerned. I'm just a bit surprised. How's that? I mean, nothing Washington has done on tape has me saying, oh no, that right. Kind of thing. So, give it a little bit of time here. So, okay, let's get away. I thought the offensive line played, more than adequate yesterday. So, Roosevelt Nix doing Roosevelt Nix kind of things on the offensive side of the football. All right.
Well, got to mention the punt block. Nice job there.
Right. And Alex has talked, about this, for years now, about how good a job Danny Smith does at scheming these things up. And, it's Roosevelt Nix could probably have 12 of these during his career by now. He's just missed on quite a few of those. So, props to the way Danny Smith schemed that up. He's got some great special teamers to work with.
Well, Darius Hayward-Bates sitting on the sideline with a bum ankle because he was going to have a block, in the game last week.
And Matakevich just missed one earlier this year. You've got in Chicolo. You've got good special teamers on. In that group there, and I don't think that's the last punt block we see this season. So, take your hat off and hand it to Danny Smith here and to a guy like Roosevelt Nix because they do a good job. And you go into every game thinking, well, maybe they can get a punt block this game. So, anytime you're feeling that way, something's going right there. Now, let's go back over to the defensive side of football. This team was without Vince Williams in this game. We knew there would probably be some combination of Matakevich and L.J. Fort in this game. The fact that we really didn't notice Matakevich having to play that much, and I think it was more of a 2-to-1. I think he kind of doubled the snaps that L.J. Fort played outside of him being matched up on Ridley down the field. I think in the third quarter there, something that you don't ever want to see happen. Really, that's kind of the only way I think Matakevich stuck out in that game. And then, the guy that did stick out in that game was L.J. Fort, and
my boy L.J. Fort. Finally we get a little burn from LJ, and look, the sack was a scheme sack. It was an easy one for him. He had a clean lane, but he timed it right, and he did what he had to do. And Matt Ryan turtled a bunch of times in that game yesterday. That was one of them. And then obviously he was able to fall on the ball and stay in the end zone and get the touchdown. Productivity pays, and he was productive yesterday. Nice to see him get an opportunity. That's kind of.
And I think that's the biggest thing, and it keeps going back to what happened last year after Ryan Shazier. Not that it may have changed anything, okay? But to hear Keith Butler say what he said about Fort this past week, and then to see, how he was. A little
surprising, though, after he said that, to still see Matakevich get more snaps than Fort did.
Yeah, I understand it. Because of kind of the roles. I thought we would see a little bit more of Fort, though, than what we saw. Now the question becomes, what do you do now? Let's assume Vince Williams comes back this week. Does everything go back to the way it was?
Yeah, it will. It will.
Should it?
I think it probably should for now. I'm not going to put the Steelers' first 4 weeks squarely on the shoulders of Vince Williams. I don't know that I think Vince has been good, but I don't think he's been terrible. I don't think Matakevich should be on the field. I think L.J. Fort should get an opportunity to play some. But yeah, I have no doubt that if Vince Williams is healthy, he's getting his spot back.
Right. You wonder now if you'll see, and you're probably not. Probably going to go back to Fort not getting any snaps and Matakevich not getting any snaps. And you can make an argument, though, and we'll see how it goes against the Bengals. You can make an argument that maybe Fort needs to be the guy on the field in nickel situations, until a guy like Matthew Thomas or whatnot, comes along. Look, Matthew Thomas played 4 snaps in this game yesterday, but they were all end of game
Yeah, he gets his first burn. Josh Dobbs gets a snap, starts his NFL career. You got in there.
Right. I think one of the other things that kind of stuck out was you continue to see Artie Burns and Cody Sensabaugh kind of rotate snaps, right?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I think Burns got more, but okay. So Sensabaugh's in there. So now we know Cam Sutton's behind Cody Sensabaugh now.
Well, I mean, Cody Sensabaugh still. Here's where I was going with that, because you didn't have Morgan Burnett in this game. You saw. I mean, Cameron Sutton played 29 snaps in this game.
More than I thought. Yep.
A lot more than what I thought. So. Maybe that's kind of an option here when you're going with the extra defensive backs, to get a little bit more athleticism. Now, Cody, I think, took a bad angle on an underneath one. Sutton, it seemed like there was something that stuck out that I didn't like about what Sutton did in that game. But here's the thing. I mean, you've got everybody but Brian Allen played defensive snaps when it comes to your cornerbacks in that game against the Falcons as well too. Now, I was surprised that they only dressed 3 safeties. I thought for sure, because of not having Burway and not having Morgan Burnett, that rookie Marcus Allen was going to dress just from a special teams number standpoint, and they decided not to do that. So that was a bit surprising to me. By the way, Jordan Dangerfield is your up back now in place of Burry. I thought Jordan Dangerfield gave you some nice special team snaps. So
did Brian Allen. Let's say down a couple balls, right?
Brian Allen did as well too. So you're right. It's going to be interesting to see what you do with this defense. I mean, is Burnett going to be a plus when he comes back?
Well, we saw Edmonds go from a very bad game to a pretty good game. So I still think you take the veteran and get him back in there. But your first round pick's getting a lot of experience here early in his career.
And it wasn't a perfect game for Edmonds, but it was definitely, we saw some positives, especially a third down tackle, a couple of third down tackles short of the chains, right?
A big one on getting off on third down, and I can't remember if it was in the second quarter. It just a defensive win. He was following a guy across toward the far sideline, and the guy caught the pass and he made the tackle. 4 yards short of the chains. It was those are tackles we've seen the Steelers miss recently, and that was a big one.
What did you think about the penalties in this game?
Mike lost his mind, obviously, and so the T.J. Watt penalty was, that was ridiculous. Hitting below the knee, brushed his ankles, whatever. I think they missed that call. The Bostic one, I thought that was the right call. I thought he should have gotten flagged.
What about the hands to the face, legal hands?
On Bud?
2 of them.
Yeah. I only remember one. I don't remember the other one.
Yeah, I want to look at those on all 22 to see if they're justified. He now leads. Bud now, I think, leads the team in penalties with 5.
I'm going to start calling him Alvin from now on. Change his luck.
Sure would like to start seeing him. I mean, at this point, I guess anything you get positive out of him.
What'd you think of TJ's performance?
Good. That athleticism. If he gets you around the corner, Matt Ryan wasn't going to run away from him.
Right.
I think my biggest takeaways from a couple of those was, Matt Ryan's not going to run away from him. So
he was turtling, man. He looked like Peyton Manning the way he was turtling yesterday.
You'd still like to see him. You still like to see him win. A couple other times. With his hands and with some counters and all like that. But you're not going to criticize the guy from getting the quarterback down as many times as he did. I think one of the most impressive rushes in the game was Cameron Hayward on one of his, right?
Yeah. We finally saw a little bit of Cam and stuff onto it a little bit more. Who's not getting a lot of burn is Javon Hargrave not getting a lot of burn.
Yeah, well, when you get ahead, you don't need that. You don't need him on the field as much.
No.
Ideally, you don't. If things have gone right, then you should not see Hargrave and Daniel McCullers on the field that much. And that's exactly what happened in this, in this game against the Falcons there. All right, overall kind of thoughts on the defense right now is more of to be continued, right?
Yeah, it's this is a fun one now on Sunday. The Steelers-Bengals game is if you can have a big game in Week 6, this is a big game because look, if the Steelers win, obviously you're going to be a half game behind the Bengals, but you've got you win the tiebreaker because you got the win. If the Steelers lose, they're in a tough spot. They're 2-3-1 with 2 divisional losses and a tie. So you
need help. You need help.
And right, the Bengals are going to be sitting at 5-1 with a win over you. So you're, obviously nothing's set in stone. But as if you look at where things were after 5 weeks last year, 9 of the 12 playoff teams were in a position to be in the playoffs after Week 5. So the season starts to take shape, and that's this is one of the Steelers come out, play like that, get a win. And you're 3-2-1, and you go into the bye. You can take, you don't take the foot off the pedal, but you can take a deep breath.
It would be a huge win. Look, I mean, these next 3, I mean, and we've talked about it, since the Buccaneers game going into that game, and especially it gets magnified after losing to the Ravens. If you beat the Ravens, in Week 5, then your second meeting against them kind of becomes I don't want to say a toss away, but the significance lessens a little bit with that. These next 3 games, I mean, it's the next 3 weeks in general with the AFC North. I mean, are we going to sit here after the next 3 weeks and still have this jumbled mess? There's a good chance.
I think we will. I think the Browns are a decent team. They didn't look. That's big help for the Steelers yesterday. The Browns winning that game. That's a big help if you're a Steeler fan. So yeah, we'll see. It is. We take the plot. I'm certainly not banking on 3 straight wins. We'll see. They could win all 3 games, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't bet your house that we already lost a couple of times on it.
All right. What's the most surprising thing right now coming out of the Falcons game?
Ben's inaccuracy. That's on the season. That's to me is the most surprising thing. And hopefully it was. Again, look, there were 8 incompletions in the first half. Go look at them. They were almost all bad throws. And you can't. If you're going to win a Super Bowl or you're going to win a playoff game, your quarterback needs to be better. And we saw yesterday across the league. Guys play badly at the quarterback position, the team loses. Ben had a good second half, and the Steelers won.
Where is your concernometer on one Chris Boswell right now?
Yeah, still 0, and here's why. Jordan Berry had a really good game yesterday. It's a level of consistency. Yeah, when he missed that extra point, certainly, Mason Crosby missed 5 kicks yesterday. First guy since Rolf Benirschke, I guess, in the 80s to miss 5 kicks in a game. People want to cut people when they have, bad performances or bad streaks. It's just not a good way to do it. We've seen over an extended period of time that Chris Boswell is a very good kicker. You don't want it to be a mental thing. You hope it's not a mental thing because those things can be debilitating. But, if you have to ride out this season where Boswell misses 10 kicks on the course of the season, you hope it doesn't cost you a game, but I think you stick with him. Obviously there's a point where you don't, but I don't think the Steelers are close to that point yet. And finally, we saw, Jordan Berry do a couple good things. So hopefully, special teams becomes a strength rather than a glaring weakness that it, was the first 4 weeks of the season.
Someone's been telling me I've been way too hard on Chris Boswell so far. Do you remember David Trout?
I do. He went to Pitt, right?
He missed 8 extra points for the Steelers in 1981.
That's from the 20.
And that's from, the 20. He missed 8 of them.
And, 20. That's a good stat.
He went to school at Pitt, and Boswell has now missed 3 on the season. I didn't realize though Trout had 2 different runs with the Steelers, right? He came in and didn't he come back in 1987? I mean,
Yeah, that I don't have that. I don't have that one.
Yeah, he kicked for the Steelers in '81, and then I think he went to the USFL with the Stars, with Philadelphia and Baltimore Stars, and then returned back to either close out the season or whatnot with the Steelers in 1987. But I almost went back in time reliving that name. But look, we wouldn't be talking about him if it was maybe only three extra points that he's missed. But he's missed 3 field goals on top of it. I mean, we open up the show kind of talking about missed field goal away from this team being 3-2 right now as well. So I'm not advocating cutting the guy right now, but you just hope you don't get to a point where he costs you a game, right? I mean, if he does that and it's a key game, even though you're probably still not going to cut him, the thought might start crossing your mind because you just gave him a lot of money. You just cannot afford to let this guy lose you games. Okay, and that's what it boils down to right now. Let him continue to try to kick through this right now, whatever. But it is a bit concerning that he's missed 3 extra points and three kicks so far. Well, maybe you're not as concerned of what you watch that Cleveland kicker. The mechanics on that one, David. I think you're a soccer star. I think you could put a couple through to look a little bit better than those.
They come off. He kicked that one in the game the first week he played. He hit one that I've never seen because a right-footed kicker, it's very hard to make the ball move left to right once it's already moved left. So he had it started it inside the post. It went outside the post to the left and then back in. I was talking to a Cleveland fan yesterday, and we were laughing about that specific kick. And then he almost gagged on the game-winning field goal. The Browns fan, he was laughing so hard about how bad it looked, but it was good enough.
Did you ever dabble in field goal kicking or no?
No, I've screwed around and done it with my soccer buddies, but if I got to do it again in high school, I would have tried to. The soccer team and the football team, we both played about the same time, so I wasn't able to do it. But later on, they had a kid who was a soccer player, kicked for the football team, and that was pretty common around high schools in Western Pennsylvania in my day.
I kind of envision you sort of like a Randy Bullock.
It's probably not bad. I'd like to be rich like Randy Bullock.
Kind of a Roy Girella.
I'm a little thicker than Roy, a little bigger than Roy.
All right. On that note, yeah, I never could. I mean, I played some soccer in high school, but I didn't have the leg or the foot or anything to even fathom trying to kick any field goals. All right. Wow, we hit on a lot here. We'll get back after it on Wednesday. We'll have a beat writer, Paul Derner, right? Is who we
good man.
Have him for the Bengals. We'll do that on Wednesday. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow David Todd on Twitter at David M. Todd. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast at gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the show, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit that donate button upper right navigational bar. We have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com as well, $25 for a calendar year. Go to SteelersDepot.com, hit ad-free upper right navigational bar. Until Wednesday.
As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Dave.